It was an ordinary evening at the 911 dispatch center. I was getting ready for another night shift when a call came in. The display showed a number registered somewhere in a wooded area outside the city. I picked up the phone and said the standard line, "911, what's your emergency?" On the other end, I heard a male voice which sounded strangely tense and worried. I'm lost in the woods. I need help." The caller sounded relatively calm, but I could detect a note of panic that he was trying to conceal. "Can you describe where you are? Do you see any landmarks?" I asked, trying to figure out how to help him. "I don't know exactly where I am. I went for a run, as usual, but I got lost when I took a wrong turn. Now I'm standing near an old house. It looks abandoned. Can you see any road signs or distinctive features in the area?" I continued asking questions while simultaneously initiating the phone's signal tracking. "There's nothing here but this house and the trees around it. I don't even remember this house being here when I ran before." The man's voice began to tremble. "I feel like someone is watching me." "Okay, try to stay calm. We're already sending help, but I need you to stay on the line and not move from where you are. Can you describe the house? It might give us more information." "The house? It looks very old. The roof has caved in. The windows are boarded up. Bushes and knee-high grass surround it. The door is slightly open and I saw something inside, but I didn't dare go in." At that moment, the system determined an approximate location. It was indeed a densely wooded area, far from the main road. I relayed the coordinates to the rescue team, but understood that finding him might be challenging. "If you're uncomfortable outside, you can go inside while we're on our way," I suggested, though I wasn't sure it was a good idea myself. The man was silent for several long seconds. Then his voice returned, but now it sounded agitated. "I think I saw someone inside. A faint light flashed through the window. But no one should be here. This house looks abandoned. What should I do?" I felt a growing tension in my chest. This was no longer a typical call. I tried to speak calmly. "Stay where you are. Do not approach the house. Help is on the way. Are you sure you saw someone?" Yes, someone was there. I hear footsteps." "No, wait, they're coming this way." The man's voice broke into a frantic whisper. "Please stay on the line." I tried to get him to keep talking, but there was no response. All I could hear was faint noise, as if someone was moving quickly through the woods. Then something fell and the line went dead. I tried to call back, but the calls went unanswered. The phone signal disappeared from the radar. At that moment, I felt my throat tighten. Something had gone wrong, and there was nothing I could do to help. About 40 minutes later, the rescue team finally reached the indicated location. They found an old, abandoned house deep in the woods, exactly as the man had described on the phone. The door was ajar, but no one was inside. The house was empty, long deserted, and there wasn't a single trace of human presence. They searched the area around the house but found no tracks or any signs of the man. The place where, according to them, the phone should have been was clean. No phone, no signs of escape. He had simply vanished. This case remains unsolved. No one was able to explain what happened that night in the woods or where the caller disappeared to. His body was never found, and he remains just a voice on the other end of the line that once called 911.
I've been working as a 911 dispatcher for 10 years now. During that time, I've heard many strange and terrifying stories, but one case still haunts me. It happened 5 years ago on an otherwise uneventful night. It was nearing midnight when the call came in. I picked up the phone and recited the standard phrase, "911, what's your emergency?" A woman was on the other end. Her voice was shaky. She was clearly frightened. "Please, help." Her voice trembled. "He's already inside the house." "Who is inside your house, ma'am?" I asked, trying to stay calm while simultaneously pulling up the caller's information. "I don't know. I don't know," she started to cry. "He's just standing there, staring at me. It's not right." His eyes. At that moment, the system pinpointed the location. A small house on the outskirts of town on some deserted street. I tried to reassure her. "The police are on their way. Please stay on the line." "How did he get inside?" The woman continued to sob, but through her tears I could make out, "I don't know. I locked all the doors, closed all the windows, but he just appeared, out of nowhere." "Are you alone in the house?" I tried to gather as much information as possible. "Yes, no," she suddenly replied. "I have a daughter. She's sleeping upstairs." "Oh God, he's going up the stairs." Her voice became panicked again. I felt a cold sweat on my back. "Please stay on the line with us, ma'am," I said, signaling my colleagues to expedite the police dispatch. "Can you hide or leave the house?" "I can't. He just disappeared. I hear his footsteps, but I can't see him. Something's wrong. It's not right." The alarm in her voice grew stronger, and I began to worry she might lose control. I tried to talk to her, to calm her, but it was as if she couldn't hear me. "Please do something," she whispered. "He's right here. I can feel his breath on my neck." And suddenly, the line went dead. I tried to call back, but there was no answer. All I could do was wait for the police to arrive. Minutes felt like hours, but finally, I was informed that officers had arrived on the scene. I left my station and walked over to the monitor to see what was happening. The police camera showed the house. Small, cozy, with bright lights in the windows. The officers cautiously entered. First, they checked the ground floor. There was no one there. Then they began to go upstairs, where, according to the woman, her daughter was sleeping. When they entered the bedroom, I saw a crib on the screen. Inside was a child, a girl of about 5, sleeping with a doll in her arms. The officers checked the room but found nothing suspicious. Suddenly, one of them shouted, "Here!" They rushed towards the closet. When the door opened, I held my breath. Inside, curled up on the floor, was the same woman. She was dead. But the creepiest thing was not that. On her face was a strange expression, as if she had seen something that shouldn't exist. Her eyes were wide open, and her mouth was frozen in a silent scream of horror. The police never found any signs of forced entry. The doors and windows were locked from the inside. They didn't find a single piece of evidence that anyone else had been there. The girl never woke up. She heard and saw nothing. This case remained a mystery, one that was never solved. The only thing I know for sure is that the call was not ordinary. I still hear her voice in my nightmares, and every time I pick up the phone during a night shift, I fear I might hear it again.
Working at 911 is not just about extreme situations. There are also plenty of routine calls. Every day we handle hundreds of calls, many of which end up being nothing. But there are some that stay with you for years. One of those cases happened a few years ago when I just started working the night shift. It was around 3 in the morning when a call came in. I answered with the usual phrase, 911, what's your emergency? In response, I heard heavy breathing, but no one spoke. This happens when people are too panicked to find the words. I continued, this is 911. Do you need help? The heavy breathing continued, but this time I noticed something strange about it. It was too even, as if the person was just listening to me speak. This made me uneasy, but I tried to remain professional. If you can't speak, please press a key on your phone to confirm you need help. A few seconds passed, and then I heard a click, as if someone on the other end of the line had pressed a button. It could have meant anything. Maybe the person was indeed in trouble, or maybe they just accidentally hit a button. I decided not to take any chances and checked the caller's location. It was a small house in a quiet residential area. I passed the information to the nearest police unit and continued speaking to the caller. The police are on their way. Please try to stay calm. If you can speak, please let me know what's happening. At that moment, I heard a faint whisper. It was barely audible, but clear enough to make out the words, He won't leave. I tensed, trying to understand what that could mean. Perhaps the person in the house was in danger. Who won't leave? Can you describe what's happening? There was no answer, just the same heavy breathing and silence. A few minutes passed, and I heard over the radio that the police had arrived at the location. They entered the house, but I lost the connection with the caller. I switched to the police channel to listen to what they were saying. They described the situation in the house as normal. The doors were locked, no signs of forced entry, and no one answered when they knocked. They decided to break in. When they entered, they found an older man sitting on the couch, clutching the phone in his hand. He was the one who had called, but he was dead. It seemed that the man had been dead for several hours, but his phone had made the call, and someone had been listening to me on the other end of the line. But who? The police were baffled. They found no evidence of anyone else being in the house. Even now, I wonder who was really on the other end of that call. Was it the man's spirit trying to reach out for help? Or was it something else? Something far more sinister? I'll never know for sure, but the memory of that call still sends chills down my spine.